Nate Brookreson, how are you, sir?
Doing about as good as I can be. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast. So, set up by Pat. You know, we both have a mutual friend of Pat. So, you were an intern with the Seahawks. How'd that come about?
No, actually, so when I was at Eastern Washington back this is probably 07, 08, just was at the point trying to figure out as much as I could about how to train athletes and be better at what I was doing. And so I was kind of seeking information outside of maybe what the kind of mainstream, S&C world was providing. And I stumbled across his blog, and I think he was probably at that point 4 blogs deep. Read it, and I was like, wow, this is stuff that I'm not thinking about, or I'm not, realizing I need to be aware of while training athletes. So I just I found his email on the site, reached out to him. And at the time, I think he's still good with this. At the time, though, he was amazing at getting back to you like right away. And I just emailed him back and forth for months, if not probably close to a year, before I was finally able to get him to come to Spokane, because he had the LMT background, to come work on some of our guys. And then at that point, just kind of blossomed into a friendship. So, I probably talked to him through text, email, or call, every week for a decade.
I forgot Pat did massages. That's right. Because I met Pat back in New York City, because he worked at the health club Equinox that I used to work at, and we kind of didn't cross paths, but we met through a mutual friend. And then I moved to Arizona. He moved to Arizona. That's right. I remember he was doing massages, and then he got the Portland, were they Lumberjacks, something, that soccer team, Portland?
No, he ended up going to Nike. He was at Nike for a couple years.
Okay, I thought he was doing something with the Portland soccer team too. And then next thing you know, he's with the Seahawks, which is worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, he did all right.
How's that coming back home? So you were out in North Carolina State for a while, right?
Yeah, I was there for 5 years.
And you saw the opening for the Kraken, and you put your name in the hat. And
nah, not really. It wasn't like a job that was posted or anything like that. It was just mutual connections through people that were in the organization, and able to get a chance to have a conversation with the GM. And at that point, it was just more just conversations, and kind of built and crescendoed into an actual role. But a lot of it early on was just kind of getting to know each other, and timing wise, I was able to connect with him pre-COVID. And so, a lot of face-to-face, where I don't think, that opportunity would have presented itself later in the process for him to go and meet a lot of other people face-to-face. So I was probably his only choice. No, so that was just, again, convenient timing for me.
So that whole deal was pretty much once the franchise came about, they started contacting you. That's when you've been in so you've been with, it's been a while. 2019 when they first got officially announced, right? And then earlier in the 20s, they finally released their logo. Okay, so you've been with, oh wow, okay. So and speaking of your GM, Ron Francis. I'm originally from upstate New York, Binghamton, New York, and Gotcha. He played for the Hartford Whalers, and the farm team was the Binghamton Whalers, and he was there for just not very long, because obviously he had a great pro career, but that was like early 80s, dude. That was a long time ago. Shit. You like hockey?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Again, I'm coming at it from a very much of an outsider's perspective, but I've always had a ton of respect for the sport. The people that play it, people that work in it are great. And now, watching it with the lens of like, okay, I got to figure out how to do the best job of training these guys. Like it just makes it even more like real now. And yeah, just getting excited for the opportunity for sure.
So what are the steps as far as right now? Where are you in the whole stage of the development of the franchise coming along? Where are you? Do you have a tree? Because they're still working on the arena and stuff. Is that where you're going to have your training facility, majority of it? And then they'll have probably a separate practice area as well.
Yeah, so they'll have the main home base will be our practice facility in Northgate, which is just north Seattle, almost leaving the city. And then Climate Pledge Arena, which was formerly Key Arena, is being completely renovated. And so that will be, the game arena. We won't do as much training there. The majority of it will happen at the practice arena. On my end, I was really lucky in that there was a performance and sports science consultant named Gary Roberts, who, if you're familiar with hockey, I mean, everybody who knows hockey knows who Gary Roberts is. And Gary transitioned into the performance world after his professional career. And so he's been, in some sort of consultancy role for a decade. Basically, as long as I've been a strength conditioning coach, he's been, working in consultant or working with hockey players up in Canada. So, he was brought on board at the same time as myself. And so it's a lot of us kind of getting together going, okay, what is the day-to-day going to look like within the NHL? How are we going to create systems and processes that are going to live, across domains in the AHL? And then kind of what's the draft junior process going to look like in regards to, delivery of services and communication and, everything from nutrition, supplementation, again, training and just, everything, right? Like you're going at it from completely ground zero. There's no processes that are set up. So you're saying, okay, what's best practice? What is going to be logistically feasible? And how do we get those things like through to completion? And are there other people within the organization that we can basically partner with to make sure that these things are done at a higher level? So whether that's, analysts or designers. And so, I mean, it's just, for me, like I'm a kid in a candy store, because I just look at it as, okay, I have a skill set and I know kind of where my wheelhouse is, but there's so many good people within the organization that you can have conversations, with around hockey or around, again, building out systems and processes that are going to be able to take data from, a software to a central hub to help you communicate it more effectively with management. And so it's just, like I'm just trying to really streamline and focus on creating those processes. And then knowing that, once we have, free agents and players that we sign, then that's going to be, when the rubber hits the road and, okay, now you're designing programs, you're doing return to play processes for injuries and things like that. But again, those things are more in my wheelhouse because I've done them for so long. The other stuff is I've never had this opportunity to be so far in front of the actual training process to get everything set up how you want it to set up.
Speaking of setup, how are you going to, what's your training philosophy? Olympic lifting, plyos, all the basics, and more mobility type exercise, movements, all that is that?
Sure. Right. Like all the, the easy answer, right, is it depends, right? Like the first thing is, to me, is you are going to have players that are selected from every team. So you're going to have, upwards of 30 guys coming in from 30 different franchises that have completely different training backgrounds, have been in the NHL for, X amount of years. Some of the guys are going to be, 10 plus year veterans. Some guys might be brand new to the league. Everybody's going to come from different training backgrounds. If a guy went through college versus juniors from overseas, like you really have to get, the old adage is communication and get to know the players that you're dealing with. But this is 100% like where you have to start, know where they're coming from, and with a lot of these guys in the off season, they're going to be training with different people, around the world, having their own guys, having, great communication with them, again, knowing, what they've been working on, what their, limitations are, what are the things that they think are important that they really need to develop. And then from there, once they, report to whether it's developmental camp or training camp, then it's really just kind of honing in and fine tuning around, okay, not making so many things, of kind of questionable processes, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm not going to try to, take on everything that I would take on in an off season. It's really like, okay, what are the most important things right now for this person to go out and play the sport at the highest level, and making sure that, we're not getting in their way and providing them everything that they need. So if there's like, something that they feel really strongly about that they've done for a long time, it's like, how do we continue to incorporate that in to make them, feel like it's not this 180 degree change, right? Because again, for a lot of them, I'm not going to get this off season of time to really get to know them and put in like that relationship building. It's more so they're going to report, and then we're going to be going into an entire, new franchise altogether.
Yeah.
But it's a season, right? You're going into a season. So, from a physical development perspective, the guys are going to be on the ice. Like there's not going to be a ton that you're trying to experiment with at that point. You're going to be more just trying to be in their wheelhouse, communicate with them, tinker and be efficient with the process. And then maybe some, guys that are more developmental or taxi squad guys, if we happen to have them, then those are going to be the ones that we really push to say, okay, what are we missing? What do you need to develop at a higher level to get on that, third, fourth line or become a starter? And that's where we can probably take more liberties to really start to push and develop with those guys.
Have you been in touch with the Vegas Knights strength conditioning coach to see how he got off the ground before they became official?
Yes. So actually, I mean, the unique thing is that Gary was in that consultancy process with Vegas. So
okay.
A lot of, yeah. So he was there for, several years. He was there, when that franchise had started. So yeah, I mean, it's great to have his perspective of like, okay, yes, this is a different situation. A lot more teams are going to be savvy to the expansion process and the players that you're going to get and so on and so forth. But really from a training and setup perspective, it's like you have somebody on your staff that's kind of been there, done that, which is great. Right. So
it's very nice.
A lot of yeah, for sure. A lot of the questions around, okay, what does the facility need to look like? Again, what in terms of the players coming in the door, like how many guys are we going to have that are reporting to the AHL level versus NHL versus, again, draftees, where they're going to be going, what did that process look like for them? Yeah, I mean, just a lot of those things. He's already kind of been there, done that. So it's nice to be able to lean on him and really pick his brain about, what that process looked like.
So what are you kind of doing in this limbo stage while you're waiting for things to get going?
Yeah, I mean, this is the chance that most people in this industry don't get, right? Is to be able to step back and say, okay, where are my blind spots? Where are the areas that I really need to develop? And then what are the things that I need to get more upskilled or better at to be better within this realm with this sport? So a ton of, self-guided continuing education, whether that's really, again, understanding about, implementation of different technologies within this setting, and then how to, again, best take that information and to, put it into a system that we're creating in-house, or if that's really understanding about systems of like, okay, FRC, PRI, like how do those things apply to this population, around their common injuries and movement limitations. Again, really deep diving into the sport. For me, I always start with this process of a needs analysis, which is, looking at the common injuries, looking at the movements that are taking place, energy systems, the testing parameters that are kind of built out, and seeing what's out there in the research, seeing what's out there, anecdotally, what's out there within the NHL, AHL, like what a lot of these people are implementing. And again, making sure that, if I'm going away and thinking about things and then I want to come back and apply them to this level, like I'm not, I don't mind being, like on the fringe or maybe a little bit experimental, but I can't be like, I can't be completely different than what everybody else is doing, because again, you have to remember at the end of the day, you have these guys coming in from every single franchise. If you're going in there and you're like, yeah, we don't lift weights here. We're all mobility. This is yoga. Like this is how we're going to eat, like very like prescriptive, and you're telling them exactly how it's going to be. Like that's not the reality of what's going to work within the professional ranks. So again, knowing what people are doing, but then just again asking those questions. Okay, if we're trying to have some sort of advantage over the people that we're competing against, what are the things that maybe we could start by putting more time and energy and effort into really understanding like our off ice testing and how we're going to identify, key inhibitors in terms of like, these are the things that our players maybe don't do well enough. And how are we going to develop those things and really start to see the relationship to on ice performance? How are we really understanding what's happening on the ice? Do we have a good handle of like what a forward does versus what a defenseman does and demands on them? Are we developing, again, our young guys at a high level to be able to come up and be effective at the NHL level? So again, being able to spend time really understanding what those processes will look like, really articulating those things so that, I feel like, part of my job is going to be to really, have good, clear communication with the coaching staff that comes in, development staff, skills staff, obviously across domains within ops, the people that are in, athletic medicine and, video, like being able to create these kind of seamless processes across the board. So then it's not a, hey, I'm just the guy that lives in the weight room. No, it's like, how can, my information best serve or help, the person who's doing, video, work, and how are they, reciprocally helping us, right? Like I think about, if we have somebody that gets injured, if we could really, tap into the video side of things where we know what their shift looks like, the specific types of movements that they're doing, and then we're tracking things, off the ice or on the ice to be able to really understand what those movements are. So then we're saying, okay, if we're going through return to play process, this is what we're really trying to create to make sure that we know that this person's ready to come back and play at a high level. So yeah, I mean, again, it's all those things. It's the biggest thing is for me is making sure that I kind of have like a theme of the day or theme of the week where it's like, okay, this is really what I want to hone in on. This is what I'm going to read. This is what I want to be able to articulate, whether it's through, presentation or, just writing it up. So kind of creating that to make sure it's like, okay, you have a specific thing that you want to accomplish. You accomplish that before you're kind of moving on, because it's drinking through a fire hose, right? Like there's so many things that you could try to be working on, but if you're not really taking things through, completing them to a point where, again, you can't, articulate those things back to people around you, then, it's kind of twiddling your thumbs or hamster wheeling it.
The one thing I remember, so I did an internship with Doug McKinney when he was with the Sabres back in 98, 99. And then I helped out Paul Goldberg when he was with the Avalanche. And the difference between that, so that was 98, 99, and then 2004 or 5. The one thing that never changed is hockey players, they grow up skating since they're young and they're always working out. And to see guys play a game and then go work out after the game, that's rare. You don't see that. And these guys, they're playing 60-minute game and they're going in and riding the bike and lifting weights. It's like, wow, you hear those stories about Yager. After a game, he'd be freaking riding in the bike and working out for 3 hours after a game. It's like, wow. Yeah, but the one thing I noticed is testing. When I was with Doug, he tried to do VO2 max, but the guy couldn't get across the border from Canada, so we never got that. And then with Paul, with the Wingate, that's kind of like a staple in hockey. And then, so what kind of testing are you going to do for your guys that, like, is it something across the board a lot of NHL strength coaches do? Or are you going to do that and then some of your own testing, like that'll be unique to your system?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to come down to, so when the players come in, you're going to be given, 1 day to really get any off-ice testing done that you want to get done. This first year, it has to be very efficient. It has to be information that we're going to use in training. I was speaking with somebody about this the other day. Like, there's two ways I look at performance testing, right? One is kind of talent IDing or describing the players that you have. So I could do things like, short sprints, change of direction, some sort of fitness test, maybe some on ice stuff. And yeah, that's going to give me a lot of great information. It's probably going to be one snapshot in time. And maybe I might only test them one time. And that seems to be pretty consistent with a lot of professional sports, which is fine. Again, like there is information that can be gleaned from that, and it can be really important. Or there's testing that maybe will inform your process throughout the season. So you think about, if you're doing jumps on a force plate, if you're doing something for kind of upper or lower body strength, maybe some sort of a movement testing, whatever that means to that person, right? Abduction, adduction, isometrics, like those things, they can give you some information about the player at the time, but those are probably things that you're going to be able to continue to test throughout the year and can help to inform your process, whether that's looking at, lack of or changes in movement efficiency, or it's looking at force production. It's looking at, speed of movement. Again, however you're bucketing or whatever you're potentially looking at. For me, I think year one, it's going to be really important to look at that stuff that we can influence, and then, kind of build that out over time. The on ice piece is intriguing to me, but until we have the coach in tow and we have really clear, communication and conversation around what that would look like, because, really, I don't want year one to be like this infringement on their processes, right? Where you're going, hey, I really want to get a speed test. I really want to get a repeat sprint ability, or, just some sort of repeatability test and something for fitness on the ice. And they might look at you and be like, we have a developmental camp with a brand new team. Like, where are we going to fit that in? Like, we need to see if these guys can play hockey. Like, we need, so again, I think about logistics, and ideally, yeah, like you'd want to test all these things, but I also don't want these guys coming in feeling like lab rats. I don't want them to come in and feel like, man, they're just like, what are they doing? Like, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. They think testing's great and blah, blah, blah. They're trying to figure out all this stuff, but it's like, hey, I'm here to play hockey. So for me, again, I'm going to lean on the side of the things that I feel like I can retest throughout the season and can inform my processes. In terms of like uniqueness, I mean, there's a lot of options of things that are out there. Again, on ice, off ice. You can look at the combine as being kind of informative, because you can at least say, okay, I have a snapshot of a guy when he was 17 or 18, and I can look at a test that's similar. And, they seem to have really good processes around their combine testing. So I think if we're looking at the things that will be in that testing barrage year one, they'll probably more be kind of combine-esque. And then, we'll iterate and grow those things over time. Like the expectation is not to be like, we're going to empty the kitchen sink year one and do everything. Like it's not that it's not like you don't look at like easing into something as like, I don't want to frame that in a bad way or say like, hey, our organization's not capable of looking at everything. Like we could, but again, like, is that going to be the most important thing? Like where do you start and how do you build that? So, that's kind of how I'm looking at things.
Where's the affiliate team going to be? Is it going to be there in the Seattle area?
It'll be in Palm Springs. Yeah. So
okay.
The AHL club, and that won't start until the following season. So we're coming in 21-22. Our AHL affiliate will come in to the AHL in 22-23.
Are you going to make sure? I mean, obviously you're going to have some form of input as to how those guys will train. So should they get called up, they're familiar with your style of training, correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Again, like, I don't look at anything that we're going to do as like so systematic that it's like, hey, this is like, okay, if you do these lifts, like this is quote unquote Nate and Gary's program. Like, I don't look at it as like anything is going to look so like programmatic where it's like, oh, that Olympic lift or this hang clean or these type of jumps, like this is Gary and Nate's stuff. It's more so going to be like, look at the player. What do they need? The means or the exercises are like the least important thing to me. It's kind of like you understand the mechanics of how they move, previous injuries. Like there's certain things where, hey, if you go down into a squat, like I'm not saying a squat is inherently bad, but if the guy's like feeling pinching or has a history of, hip labral issues, like, maybe it's a live to fight another day. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze on certain things? Like, yes, ideally you would like all your players to be able to hinge, squat, push, pull in multiple planes and do all these things well. But again, at the end of the day, we're doing our job to help them be successful in the sport. So what that looks like is really, that's going to dictate more of your exercise selection and volumes and intensities and things of that nature. So like we'll have those conversations across, the affiliate, and we'll probably, it's not like we'll sit down and go over, hey, what are you doing with this guy? What are you doing with this guy? But like, I would like to have those type of open dialogues where it's like, hey, we're going into this part of the season. This is what we're thinking. This is kind of this bucket or group of guys that we're looking to do this type of program. This other group, we're kind of looking at this type of stuff. What do you think? Yeah, cool. Or ask questions and not being critical, but just kind of being open to having those conversations as to like, how, okay, why are you thinking this? Great. And then really, any successful kind of S&C situation comes down to like how those things are executed. So if you walk into the weight room, like, yeah, everybody can do an Olympic lift, but like, how does this group execute it? Is it done well? Is it done with intent? Are you getting out of it what you're expecting to get out of it? Because again, you can write exercises on a piece of paper. That doesn't mean it's gonna get anything done in terms of what you're looking to accomplish. So a lot of that is making sure that we have somebody that's a technician that can really coach, that can progress as needed, lateralize, and make sure, like, okay, this is what we're trying to get out of this exercise, and this is what we're going to make sure it gets done, in that way. So yeah, I mean, that's how I look more at that relationship rather than like.
So the workouts would be somewhat standard, but then customized depending on the athlete and should they have injuries or certain mobility issues and stuff. So yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, okay,
yeah, and so I think about it like there's certain exercises that are going to be more biased towards like, okay, this is really good with force production, this is great with speed. This is something that's more sport specific. This is more tailored towards this individual based on, again, what their limitations are. That's how I look at exercises rather than, again, like everybody's got to do X, Y, and Z. But, preferentially, like, things like trap bar deadlift and front squatting and various plyometrics and like pressing, pulling, like those things are, they're going to be pretty common in most programs. And if you're training, twice a week, you're probably doing what is more considered like a total body program. Right. And, again, like not trying to say it's the simplest thing ever, but also not trying to overcomplicate the process and make them feel like they're, like, I don't know this exercise. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never seen this before. This is super novel to me. It's going to be stuff that guys have done before. Our library in terms of exercises, like I don't expect us to have like this like library that's so vast where like guys are going, all right, man, I've seen this exercise one time. I don't even know how to do it. It's more so things are going to stay pretty consistent within the program.
Keep it simple, stupid. That's the way to go.
For sure.
Hey, how about nutrition wise? Are you going to have input as far as that? I'm guessing they'll have sports nutritionists, dietitian, someone like that, but will you work alongside them and make sure that there's good coordination? Like this guy, hey, we need to get his body fat down more and put a little more lean muscle on, that type of deal.
Yeah, those are conversations myself and Gary and across the organization are having, daily, weekly at this point. I mean, that's where we'd like to have an edge is on the nutrition side of things and whatever that's going to mean. Really, like it's going to come down to making sure that the guys have access to really quality food. So that's working with whether it's somebody in-house or somebody externally, right? It's just making sure we have really good quality food that the guys can have access to for breakfast and lunch. And having a really good process around that, things that taste really good, things that, again, guys are going to want to eat. Eventually, like the process would be tailoring it towards their needs. Supplementation is really kind of an as needed basis. There's going to be, kind of things that we would consider standard, and then there would be things that would be more specific to the individual. Again, we're kind of working through processes in terms of, how those things will look between medical, from a nutrition perspective, what kind of falls in S&C and really defining what those things are. And, right now it's hard for me to speak to the exact, like, this is what the exact nutrition process is going to look like. But, with the amount of kind of not concern, but effort in those areas, like my expectation is that our organization is going to be, one of the best in the NHL at providing just good quality food sources for these guys.
How about speaking of supplements? Because a lot of guys like to buy their own and get the proteins. And how about, because sometimes now you find these like SARMs and stuff in the supplements, and guys don't know, and all of a sudden they get dinged for. It's not really big in the NHL as far as the NFL and like UFC and stuff like that. So you can educate guys on how to go about using supplements. How do you feel about supplements? Are there certain ones you prefer over others, or
no? The biggest thing is anything coming through the door has got to be NSF certified. So we'll have conversations with the guys coming to the door, like, hey, are there any supplements that you're currently taking? Making sure that they're not on a list that, is banned in the NHL, make sure that they're appropriate. If guys feel strongly about something, it's NSF certified, we'll have conversations to make sure that they're taking it appropriately or have a, rationale around it. Otherwise, Yeah. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is food first, right? Is making sure, like, let's not try to just fill in the gaps with supplements. Like, let's make sure that we're eating a quality diet. And then if we're adding supplements, we have very specific rationale, right? Like, okay, we want to get additional protein because we can't pack it in with every, meal that you're eating throughout the day, because you're having, gut issues because you just can't physically consume that much. Making sure that we have access to quality protein, electrolytes, just simple things, right? Like, I think that the esoteric stuff in nutrition becomes, a lot of people's crutch, where it's like, oh, I need to have like these supplements to be successful. And it's like, if you just did a better job auditing your diet and knowing, what you needed to do on that end, then you would probably, you'd get more, bang for your buck, rather than like, I got to go run to, local GNC and grab X, Y, and Z supplement.
Yeah. Real food. That's the way to go. And hopefully, are you concerned with, because the younger guy, I mean, hockey players are different. I mean, I've worked out of all the athletes I worked with, they're my favorite, because they're very knowledgeable about what they're putting in their bodies, especially now, the guys today, these young guys coming up. So are you concerned with the younger guys? Because at the same time, there's those ones that, and I think it shows their performance too, that eat shitty food, spend a lot of time eating the fast food when they're outside with their rink and stuff. Are you going to make sure you really try and educate these guys on proper eating habits and getting real food as opposed to Jack in a Box?
So being in college for as long as I had been, and this idea around like the education piece, I think education is hugely important, right? To understand, like, this is what proper diet does for your performance and recovery and all these things. But ultimately, like, education is important, but we need to create the environment and create the standard where it's like, yes, you're going to be educated, generally around like macro needs and, again, if you did blood biomarkers, what kind of other supplementation you might need based on that, and why, right? But provide the environment to allow the guys to be successful. So give them good food that they're going to eat. And then it's not as big of an issue to like have to constantly educate, because it's like the education ends up just being like, don't do all these bad things we don't want you to do, or don't, go eat these, like, like you said, Jack in the Box or McDonald's of the world. But like, if you have great food around and something that's like, okay, it's there right when you get in the door for practice, you have, a lunch that you can take, you even get dinner maybe potentially to go, or stuff that you could take home. And we're really working, hand in hand with the players and the people who are preparing the food to just have really good food and variety and things that guys are going to want to eat. And like, again, the education is part of it, but again, that becomes the cherry on top instead of the thing that like you're constantly having to lead with, where it's like educate. But like, they're like, well, if I got to go make the food myself or go buy it, prepare it, like, I can be educated around that stuff, but sometimes it's just, again, like you think, I mean, right? 82 game season plus, and the amount of travel that these guys go through and the stress in their body, the physicality of the sport. Like, these guys are probably not wanting to go home and
make
do
food.
this. Yeah. And maybe some of them are, right? But like, let's provide the best environment for them to be successful. And then the education just ends up being like the tinkering rather than, how we lead with everything.
Well, I think the cool thing now today with apps and stuff, and you can get these like those pre-made healthy meals delivered right to you too. Plus Seattle, you're in a health conscious city, and I'm sure there's tons of health food options that guys can, besides fast food. I'm sure you'll have some because you're gonna be dealing with 17, 18-year-old kids, some of them coming right off, we'll go back to juniors and stuff, but these guys are kids. That's the beauty that you got such an age range of athletes you'll be working with, the freaking question. Teenage all the way up to 40 plus years.
You're right. Like the uniqueness of that in the sport, like, again, like, to me, that's really cool. Like, I've worked in college for so long where everybody was 18 to 23 years old.
Yep.
And it's pretty homogenous population. Now, when you talk, like you said, 18 to 40, like, again, I think about my training now versus, when I was 23, 24 and finishing up college, like it's very, very different. And what would help me, be successful if I had to go out and do, a high level sport, is going to be much different than what's, helping that 23-year-old. And your margin of error gets, as you age, right? That margin of error, like you do just a little bit too much volume and
you're like,
whatever, a little bit too much intensity. Yeah. That thing that, exactly. You start to feel your age. So, no, I kind of welcome that challenge and look forward to it for sure.
Are you excited for this? You're probably like, get this thing on the road, man. I want to get going here.
Yeah. That's the hard part. It's like a hurry up and wait, right? There are a ton of things to get done. Yeah. And but it's different when you're a strength conditioning coach for so long. You never go into a situation where you go, okay, I have 6 months plus to really prepare to have the best, program, situation, everything really streamlined and nuanced. Most times you take a job and you're into it and you're kind of figuring out things on the fly. So again, I really welcome the process of being able to step back and set up systems. But yeah, at the end of the day, like one of the biggest reasons I took this job is because it's a head strength and conditioning job. And to me, it's like hand in the dirt, like the stuff that that's what I want to be about. Like I want to train athletes. Like I want to be, in the weight room, on the ice, in the field, like doing the things that are going to help them be successful. And again, the administrative stuff was fun, but like this is kind of like the grassroots type stuff. So to be able to just be in this realm only and not, assistant AD where you're having to worry about a lot of other kind of organizational hierarchical things. Yeah. Right. This is just like, just train the guys and do it at a high level. So yeah, like it's making sure you're not like too overzealous too. When like, if we sign free agents and guys, you're like, all right, gotta give them space, not spaz out. If we get a couple guys that are wanting to come to Seattle to train, like you gotta ease into it. Right. I don't want to come at them 150 miles an hour. I'm like, all right, let's go. So
I think you'd be okay. Hockey players are awesome. You can skate, right? You can skate.
I'm getting better at skating. So okay. I would say when I came into it, I was pretty novice, but I've gotten a lot better. So again, that's one of those other things that I've tried to fill in.
Yeah.
This time.
I remember Doug McKinney when I was with the Sabres. He really couldn't skate. He could skate. He could keep himself up, but yeah, he's trying to show us that. Yeah, it's definitely a plus when you know how to skate. At least can stay up. I fell, but I know how to skate. And I remember hitting my elbows like mother. Felt like I was gonna throw up. But that's man. Cool. I'm happy for you. That's a cool gig you got going on. That's fresh, man. You're brand spanking new. That is awesome.
Yeah, and this organization is like that's honestly the best part of it, and I knew it was a quality group of people coming into it, but like when we're on these Zoom calls and really getting a chance to talk to one another and kind of like the cool thing now is you get to see the ins and outs of like, like our marketing and branding and just like the awareness around the franchise, like the other things that are going to be happening again outside of just hockey and like the quality of people. Like, for example, like this gentleman, Johnny Greco, who's on our staff. Like I was looking him up the other day. I'm like, man, this guy he's been with like Vegas Golden Knights and he's at Madison Square Garden and, he's been like WWE, like entertainment fan experience. Like these people in this organization are like the cream of the crop at what they do. So you kind of like, I don't want to be the scrub. Like, there's this sense of like, I gotta live up to my billing, like brought you in here for a reason. So you better be great at what you do. So again, like that's part of, to me, like the exhilaration around this organization is like, I'm going to be great. Like I'm going to come in here and be amazing at what I do and work my butt off. And so, yeah, it's been great.
Do you know Dave Good with Nashville?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to him. I got connected with him through our equipment guy, Jeff Camilio. So they worked together at Nashville for a number of years.
That's right. Yeah, I'm good friends with Dave. We went to Colorado together and we were on Doc Crease. I don't know if you know who Doc Crease. He was the strength. Yeah. And sure. He and I were with Doc, and then Dave went out to LA and got with the Kings. And he's always been good to me. He's tried to connect me with, I've gotten out of it, but St. Louis moved their franchise to here in San Antonio. And out of the blue, I get a text from Dave saying, hey, this, I don't know who's the head guy at St. Louis, but he said, he's going to get a hold of you about seeing maybe doing running the thing for the guys in San Antonio. And we always been good. And I've been out in Nashville. I met the equipment guy. That's right. I met him. We went out to dinner. This is a while ago. but yeah, beard, right? He's got a little dark hair beard, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, he was a good guy. Good guy. That's cool. That's right. I forgot. I remember reading about that on NHL.com. Yeah. Dave's a good guy. I mean, good, but yeah, seriously, he's a good dude. So yeah,
he was,
that's cool.
That's again, you talk about the players, you know, one of the things really early on when people talking to you about the NHL, they're like, the players are great. Like they're super hardworking guys. Sorry, my son just poking his head.
See that?
Yeah. Just like very humble. The one thing our GM had talked about is, you know, if you get to a hotel, like they're grabbing their own bags and taking them to the room, like those type of guys. But you know, the thing that that's really stood out to me is when I'm connecting to different people with different people in the NHL, AHL, or even at the college level with hockey, like just great people like that. That's kind of been the common theme where it's like, I might not have ever connected with them around training just because I was in a very different world, you know, through basketball or football where I have been in the past. But now it's like, just getting to talk to them, like, yeah, it's fun to talk about hockey. And I always lead with that and we'll kind of go there, but then just kind of talking about life and getting to know them as people and just, yeah, genuinely like good people and just like very, very humble, like hardworking. They want to help you in any way that they can. So like the fraternity of people in the NHL, like, again, you know, on top of the organization, like I'm proud to be a part of that. And again, feel like this sense of like, okay, I need to be reflective of what a lot of these people are who they are as people. So,
yeah, because hockey's a very close knit community, you know, because they all know each other some way, somehow, playing in Canada, playing juniors, something. And then the coaches and, you know, come from playing, now they're coaching. So everyone's connected somehow.
Yeah.
That's the one sport I always said, if I ever went back to coaching, it would be hockey, because the guys work out hard for you, and you know they're always down to earth. There's one dude on the Sabres, but other than that, they're all so easygoing, and they just, like I said, you know, they go play a game and then they're working out after the game. It's like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Are you serious? You're a professional athlete and you're still earning your keep. You know, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
A lot of family men too. I'm you know, I got
that too.
2 kids. Yeah. A lot of, like, you know, you see these guys are in the league. They're, you know, again, about my age, they got 3 kids. It's like, wow, that's, you know, again, that's, and you're able to see that too. Like if you're seeing these guys on social media, like they're not like that, they're putting more about their family and kind of like that side of things than they are of patting themselves on the back of, you know, hey, I'm great in the NHL, blah, blah, blah. It's like, again, yeah, seem like my kind of people for sure.
Are your kids, they play hockey? They into
so my son, my oldest son, who popped in the video earlier, I got him into ice skating, and then we've been rollerblading a lot too, just around our cul-de-sac. And then I got a hockey stick in his hand, so playing, you know, roller hockey. And then like all these friends in the neighborhood is pretty cool. Like they just come over and they skate together, and like he's getting better and better. And so now there's a sheet that's 20 minutes north of us that does like a learn to play hockey class. And so I'm gonna enroll him in that, and then there'll be a hockey season, I think, starting in August or September of next year. So that'll be his first season. But yeah, he's jacked for it. We're still trying to figure. The only thing we're trying to figure out is like he thinks he's a lefty, which like that's great. Like if he wants to be a lefty, I'm like, leave it alone. Everybody in the family's right-handed, but if he wants to be a lefty in hockey, I'm like, that's perfect. And when I see, you know, stick work and everything, you can definitely tell that he fancies himself a lefty. So it's,
and then if he's a defenseman, they need left-handed shooting defenseman for power play. Man, he's golden. He's got
exactly
straight right to the NHL. Well, listen, Nate, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck as things go on. And even though I'm a Philadelphia Flyers fan, I'll do a little rooting for the Kraken unless they're playing the Flyers, because I've met you and stuff. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Really, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, this has been great.
Hey, any social media stuff you want to give out? Hey. Any social media you want to get so people get a hold of you, or no? Okay, I'm good. Yeah. Seattle Kraken's Nate Brookreson, right? Okay. Yep. Thanks again, Nate. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. See you, Nate.
See you, bud.